Megan Hicks of I Run Far, and I'm here at the finish line of the 2015 The North Face Endurance Challenge 50-mile championships. I'm with men's third place finisher Ryan Bak. Congratulations!
Thank you.
Seemed like it was a master class of a day with a few little wobbles and bobbles that you recovered from.
Yeah, definitely hit one rough patch.
Okay.
It's a longer rough patch than I would have liked. It was probably 8 miles long. And then, you know, when it's going that long of a rough patch, you start to have some doubts. But, you know, I just kind of kept plugging away and just kept thinking, well, it's got to get better at some point. And it did. And then I felt really good the last 18 miles.
So I want to ask you a little bit about your mindset coming into this race. You had a really good showing at Lake Sonoma this spring, your first 50-miler. Did that give you confidence, or did you go into today thinking, this is still 50 miles, it's a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely took confidence from that race. My training was very different for Lake Sonoma than it was for this race.
Okay.
And so I didn't take confidence from my training coming into this by any means, but I kind of felt like, well, I've done this before. I know it's going to hurt. You know, if all goes well, it'll probably just hurt longer than it needs to. But I consider myself a pretty tough runner. I feel like I can fight through a lot of pain. Probably not quite like Max King, but not too far behind him in that category.
Okay.
And so luckily I've done well in some races when I haven't been nearly as fit as I'd like to be, just kind of just gut it out. So I kind of thought that's what I'd need to do today, and that's kind of how it went.
Okay. Now, your training differences between Lake Sonoma and here. You've had some things going on in life. You have a new baby at home.
New baby, 10-week-old.
Is that to which we attribute the different training?
That's some of it, yeah. I've been really busy with work and having a new baby, and you know, it's hard to be selfish to get out for a run when, you know, you've got family to take care of.
The rest of the world is happening?
Yeah, exactly. So
what was different this time?
Training volume was the biggest thing, and number of long runs.
Okay.
I mean, going into Lake Sonoma, I was probably running between 80 and 95 miles a week for 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
With quite a few 25 to 35 mile long runs.
Okay.
And all the long runs were going really well, so I took confidence from that, even though it was my first 50 mile. Like, you never know what's going to happen after that point, but I felt pretty good, like confident wise, going into the first one, and this was probably 3 to 4 months of 30 to 40 mile weeks.
Okay.
And no long runs in there.
Half the volume.
And then I had a little crash training block. So the last 4 weeks I did 80, 90, 80, and then a taper.
Okay.
So it was something to jumpstart my system. If I hadn't done that, there's no way I could have done what I did. But it was just a little crash training, and snuck in 2 long runs over the last 4+ months. I did a Lithia Loop Trail Marathon, just kind of as a hard effort, forced long run more than anything.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks after that, I did a 30-mile run that felt absolutely horrible. But I think some of that was I was tired from doing very little to then suddenly doing so much. So yeah, I mean, I really thought today could either go really well or really bad. I mean, I was definitely fresh.
Let's just call it fresh.
Yeah.
You took it out hot. I mean, you and the rest of the boys in the front. Did you just go off and say, well, we'll give it a shot? Yeah,
I mean, I like to race aggressively.
Yeah.
And I was definitely more conservative at Lake Sonoma. Lake Sonoma, I went into it and I said, I knew Alex was in great shape, and I didn't know if I could hang with him, but I know he races very smart. And so I just tried to key off him as long as I could, and he pulled away from me while I was having a bad patch there. I probably mile 27, 28, something like that, but ran with him just doing exactly what he did. You know, if he hiked somewhere, I hiked there.
I shall
you know,
cover you now.
and it was great, and it was a very good first experience to
Okay.
have somebody like that I could key off of. And coming into this race, I know Zach always is aggressive and likes to be aggressive, and I love to race aggressively as well. And I kind of figured, well, it could either go really well or really bad, but I don't know. I've tried. We've only run 250 miles, but in 50Ks and some shorter things, like I've tried being a little more conservative the first part of a race, and I still always hit a point towards the end where I just feel terrible. And you know, and you slow down a little bit, and I've tried being really aggressive, and you still hit that point where you feel terrible at the end. And so I feel like for me, I like to get a little bit of time in the bank and try to get a gap if I can. As long as I'm not too aggressive where I can still hang on, kind of. So I think that's a similar strategy that what Zach takes.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like you two were pretty much keying off each other for the first half of the race. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little bit out there and kind of keying off each other, and so I mean that's helpful to have a teammate and you know, someone that I've raced with plenty of times. This is the first time I've raced in an ultra with Zach, but just the whole team competition in like within the race here too was great, and I think Zach and I were really like excited about that. And just I talked to Zach after the race, and there was a point where he said he was a little bit nervous that we were being too aggressive, and I was surprised to hear him say that.
You're like, hey, come on, you were leading the charge.
But we were definitely like, you know, kind of checking in, how you feeling? Okay, like we were happy that we were kind of forming some gap on some of the guys that we knew were our top competition here, and we were doing it without. I mean, there were no real hard pushes anywhere. It was just kind of a steady grind. And for me, you know, if the terrain's not too crazy, running. I mean, we hit some 540 splits on some of the flatter sections.
That's,
you know, we
like,
had a 520 split. It's like,
comfy.
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's comfy, but when you're pumped up for a race, you got that extra adrenaline. I mean, it feels like I'm running 7-minute pace. Like that. So, you know,
it's
as long as the body
for a time period.
Yeah. Exactly. And I've got a lot of speed over the years in my legs, so I feel like I'm probably more efficient at running that pace than I am at running 7 or 8 minute pace. So, to some degree, I do it. It just says like that's what I feel good at.
Right. Let me ask you about your rough patch. When did it start?
It started on the descent into Stinson Beach.
Okay.
And it wasn't so much like a nutrition thing that I felt bad at that point. It was more just that semi-technical downhill. I know it's not anything really technical. It's technical for me.
Right.
My legs weren't feeling great. And then I got into that aid station just, you know, not feeling as well as I would have liked to, because it's, you know, you're still 27.8 miles into the race or something. It's still a lot to go.
And a big climb out of
and
there.
Then on that climb out, that was when I really hit a rough patch, and I hiked quite a bit of that climb. And I kept expecting a bunch of people to come by me, but we were so aggressive before that you know, we had a lot of time in the bank. Yeah, so I got into the next aid station, and I was still in second at that point, but Zach had put 6 or 7 minutes just on that one stretch on me. But then shortly after that, I had a few more guys go past me, and it was, you know, starting to have some doubts just of like how the day was going to go. But you know, I just kept trying to plug away, and luckily things turned around. But it was probably close to an 8-mile rough patch.
Did you drink some water? Did you have some food? Did you put some
electrolytes
in? Like what? What do you think were some of the things that put you back together?
Just putting a lot of calories in me. Food. And yeah, I think some of the early parts of the race, I've played around with different things nutritionally, and I've had some races where I don't really take a whole lot for, you know, maybe the first 90 minutes, almost nothing. This race, I started drinking like a calorie drink right off the bat, and I felt like I was in a pretty good place, and you know, but it was like I only had that in my bottles from the crew areas, and And then I was at first I was getting water in my bottle at the other stations, and then after I hit that rough patch, I started getting like the goo electrolyte drink in, and I was starting to eat a little bit of stuff too. But yeah, I think it was just putting more calories in, and I mean some of it too is just the change of the terrain.
Yep.
You know, because you have a little more up and down after that long climb, and just kind of got my legs back under me.
Okay. You come across the line, 3rd place, pretty competitive North American Ultra. It's kind of like 2 for 2 this year for you at 50 mile,
Yeah.
competitive.
I got to win one of these days, but I feel like, you know, they've both gone very well. So
It's as solid as you can get without winning.
Yeah.
At 2 races. But my question is what does a guy like you do? You have 2 of these really solid finishes. You also have like a very busy career. You're in a very busy stage of family life. What does a guy like you do now? Keep trying to win one of these things?
Yeah.
Try a different distance?
I really like the 50-mile distance. I mean,
Okay.
I've only done 2. I would like to race 100K because it's somewhat similar,
Yeah.
you know?
Just a few more miles.
It's a few more miles. But I mean, honestly, by the way I was feeling at the end of this race, I felt like if I had to, I could have pushed more. If I could go another 10
Yeah.
12 miles, but I felt like I could. I don't think I was really taking too much time. I think I gained a little bit back on Zach and Dylan over the last 5 or 6 miles, but I felt like I was rolling pretty good, and I was holding back a little bit too, just because you know, you never know what can happen if you push a little bit too hard. Because I mean, I had a few steps here or there where you just get, you know, your hamstring would kind of just like cramp a tiny bit, and you're like, ooh, let's get some more electrolytes in and just take it easy for you know, a minute. But I felt like I could roll pretty good at the end, which means it's probably a little more insane.
Have you thought about what your first race of 2016 might be?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I haven't had time
Ryan's
to think to
looking for
plan it
races,
out.
everybody.
Yeah. I'd like to do Lake Sonoma,
Okay.
especially with the team competition thing here. Because, you know, in all honesty, that's why I ran this race today. This race was on kind of the list of races I wanted to do, but just the timing of when we were having our second child, it really didn't make sense to do it. And from a training perspective, it didn't really make sense to do it. But, you know, when I found out about the team competition, we had a little email chain going around with the Necky guys that I was like, okay, I'm in. It's you know, a reason to try to get fit for it. So that draws me to Lake Sonoma, and I had a good race there. But it's, you know, I'm still fairly new to the ultra stuff, and it's, you know, there's so many great races out there. I want to do different things. So at first I was thinking I wouldn't go back to Lake Sonoma this year just because I've done the race. But with the team aspect, I'd like to do it. I don't know if that'll be my first one or not next year. But that's the only thing I know that I'll probably do so far.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to you.
Well, thank you very much.
3rd place, TNF 50. A really great way to cap off 2015.
Good way to end the year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.